you hate this, is not having a solid connection to the internet one of the most annoying problems on Earth? In the near future, this might be occurring more and more. With the loss of net neutrality, big companies like Netflix have to pay a lot of money to internet providers so that the people who use Netflix have a good connection. If Netflix doesn't pay, internet providers will make the screen buffer.
America is facing one of the biggest problems regarding internet since it was introduced. Net neutrality, the law which keeps internet free and available for everyone, might be abolished by the chairman of the FCC, Ajit Pai. This is Thomas. He is a poor farmer from Wyoming. He lives in the middle of nowhere and the only way he is able to sell his food is via internet. What will happen when net neutrality is abolished? What is the public opinion? And what will happen when this law does not pass the Senate?
The possible loss of net neutrality has been a cause for a lot of controversy all over the United States. One of the biggest fears is that the big internet companies like Facebook and Google getting more powerful, leaving no room for tiny companies to rise. Since the websites will have to pay the internet service providers in order for their websites to have a fast loading speed, many tiny websites won't be able to afford that and thus will be left completely out of the equation. The high costs for the companies like Netflix have a good chance of being reflected back onto the consumer. This might mean you end up paying more for being able to browse your favorite sites.
To make things even worse, the quality of these sites might even start to get lower and lower. When the smaller sites can't afford anymore to compete with the big companies, this leads to a lack of competition. And without competition, these companies won't be pushing to achieve better quality. Also, internet companies have the opportunity to create so-called fast lanes. This means that regular people will have a low connection and you have to pay to get a faster connection. In addition to that, the companies have the opportunity to block certain websites, such as websites from rivaling companies.
But what could happen if the law does not pass the Senate? First of all, the FCC can adjust the law to the liking of the Senate. If that does not pass either, it looks like net neutrality is saved. However, Donald Trump also has the possibility to sign the law without the Senate. The question is, does he want to do that? Now, what is exactly the reason for getting rid of net neutrality? The main reason why certain people want to get rid of the legislation concerning net neutrality is that they think it hurts the number of investments done on faster internet. Adding to this is that the FCC, which stands for Federal Communications Commission, thinks it will give priority to connections that are the most important. Ajit Pai, the chairman of the FCC, wants to get rid of the legislation concerning net neutrality. He will now give you his arguments on why he believes it should be abolished.
Well, I favor a free and open internet, as I think most consumers do. My concern is with the particular regulations that the FCC adopted 2 years ago. They are what is called Title II regulations, developed in the 1930s to regulate the Ma Bell telephone monopoly. And my concern is that by imposing those heavy-handed economic regulations on internet service providers, big and small, we could end up disincentivizing companies from wanting to build out internet access to a lot of parts of the country, low-income, urban, and rural areas, for example. And that, I think, is something that nobody would benefit from.
Is there evidence, though, that these rules have disincentivized those companies? I mean, their businesses are doing very well. They're spending billions on the spectrum.
There is significant evidence that investment in infrastructure has gone down since the adoption of these rules. For example, there's a study by a highly respected economist that says that among the top 12 internet service providers in terms of size, investment is down by 5.6%, or several $1 billion over the last 2 years. And among smaller providers as well, just earlier this week, 22 internet service providers with 1,000 customers or less told us that these Title II regulations have kept them from getting the financing that they need to build out their networks. And as they put it, these net neutrality regulations hang like a black cloud over our businesses. And so what we're trying to do going forward is figure out a way that we can preserve that free and open internet that consumers want and need, and preserve that incentive to invest in the network that will ultimately benefit even more consumers going forward.
But on the other hand, as mentioned earlier, one of the problems of getting rid of the legislation of net neutrality is that small companies are being left out of the equation, as they are forced to pay extra to ensure that they have quicker loading speed so that customers still visit their website. Another concern is the possibility that customers aren't given all the information that is available. Adding to this is the fact that this will ultimately lead to unfair competition, not only in terms of doing business, but also for children at school who are unable to find proper sources, just because their parents don't have the best internet package. This will lead to even bigger social inequality.
But what will happen if the law is passed by Congress? We actually don't know. Of course, we can make some predictions and theories on the subject, but you can never be too sure. First of all, the general public does get a better internet connection, as according to one theory, the current situation hurts investments, and if companies do invest more, the general speed of the internet system will improve as well.
In addition, fast lanes will be prioritized using digital payments. But if it's then hard to access these lanes, the overall safety of the network will improve. However, it can also backfire, as people will be locked down in their own sphere of influence, but now there's no way out. Which means more and more social levels will form. Each believes that their view is right because they never hear the opposite, so they must be right. And it may cause a monopoly position for current big companies, as they are the only ones able to pay huge amounts of money to give them again priority over others. This will lead to smaller companies unable to thrive and compete properly with the establishment.
So, in the near future, the loss of net neutrality will bring internet prices to an outrageous level. Tiny companies will not be able to compete with the big shots because they simply cannot afford to pay the internet providers. Buffering will become a regular occurring issue. Thomas will not be able to compete with grand-scale food producers because his site will be blocked. The loss of net neutrality means the loss of your fundamental rights, because internet providers are discriminating small companies, and in the law it states that you can't be discriminated. Hey everybody, thanks for watching our documentary. If you enjoyed, there's a little present for you, a small blooper video. Anyways, that's all for me. Peace out. Zo een beetje naar voren gaan leunen, of echt zo achterover?
Nee, doe dit.
Will be abolished by the chairman of the FCC, Ajit Pai. Veel nieuws. Oh nee. With the loss of net neutrality, big companies like Net... Okay. Do you hate this? Is not having a solid connection?
Precies één zo'n voetje, twee zo'n voetjes.
Dus ik heb dat liever niet op een nieuwe bank.
Gat in de muur. Nee, dat valt weer op vergeleken met de andere shots. Ja, dat is goed.
Dit is beter.
Middenweg.